While Egypt deploys 10,000 troops to Somalia and signs emergency port deals across the Horn, three presidents just walk calmly through a public street together in Ethiopia. No armored convoy, no closed roads, and Egypt's closest ally, Eritrea, wasn't even invited. Not Addis Ababa, not a neutral capital. Jigjiga, a city Cairo hoped would stay broken forever. Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed, Somalia's Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, Djibouti's Ismail Omar Guelleh, side by side, smiling, waving to crowds on a street once defined by insurgency and chaos. The phrase that exploded online, "One people, three flags." This is HornAfrica Insight. What Cairo is watching isn't a photo op, it's a strategic catastrophe. Here's what the Jigjiga walk really meant, why Eritrea's exclusion changes everything, and why Egypt's billion-dollar encirclement strategy just collapsed in a single afternoon. January 31st, 2026. Jigjiga, capital of Ethiopia's Somali region. Three leaders descended from their vehicles and did something unprecedented. They walked. Not through palace gardens, not in a secured compound, through public streets where vendors sold tea and children ran alongside motorcades. Geography matters in diplomacy. Jigjiga sits 618 kilometers from Addis Ababa, nearly touching the Somalia border. For decades, this region meant instability, insurgency, neglect. Ethiopia's problem corner. So choosing Jigjiga wasn't symbolic, it was surgical. This was a declaration that regions Cairo hoped would destabilize Ethiopia are now being showcased as success stories. Not problems to manage, futures to invest in. The walk itself mattered because confidence cannot be faked on an open street. No armored glass, no 20-meter security perimeters. Just three leaders and thousands of witnesses. Egypt had spent months positioning Ethiopia as isolated, reckless, dangerous. Then this image broadcasts globally. Regional coordination, public trust, visible unity. From Cairo's perspective, this alone was uncomfortable. But it was only the opening act. Officially, the leaders inaugurated Shabili Resort, a luxury tourism project in a region once written off as uninvestable. But Ethiopia's game in the Somali region goes far beyond one resort. Officials claim development spending in this single region approaches $10 billion. Infrastructure, energy grids, roads connecting previously isolated towns, hotels, industrial zones. This is not charity. This is geopolitical repositioning. Ethiopia appears determined to tap every natural blessing in every corner of the country, especially corners others assumed would stay fragile, Jigjiga included. Development here sends three messages simultaneously. First, to local populations, the federal government is investing, not abandoning. Second, to Somalia, cooperation with Ethiopia delivers tangible benefits, infrastructure, trade, connectivity. Third, to Egypt, your narrative that Ethiopia is collapsing under internal pressure? Here's a $10 billion rebuttal. Infrastructure inaugurations are rarely just economic events. They are declarations of permanence, of long-term planning, of confidence that transcends today's headlines. And when three leaders show up together to cut the ribbon, that's not development, that's diplomacy. But there was one leader conspicuously missing, for obvious reasons. Eritrea's Isaias Afwerki. No invitation, no delegation, no pretense of inclusion. Because Ethiopia and Eritrea are not on speaking terms right now. They are preparing for confrontation, possibly war. Eritrea has thrown its weight fully behind Egypt's Horn of Africa strategy. Asmara hosts Egyptian military assets, grants Cairo access to Assab port, and publicly opposes every Ethiopian move. In return, Egypt provides Eritrea with diplomatic cover, economic lifelines, and security guarantees. So Isaiah staying away wasn't surprising. He wasn't welcome. But here's what makes this absence strategically devastating for Cairo. While Eritrea stands with Egypt opposing Ethiopia, Somalia, and Djibouti, countries Egypt is courting with billions in port deals, walked Ethiopian streets alongside Abiy Ahmed. Eritrea can afford to burn bridges with Ethiopia because it shares ideology with Egypt. But Somalia and Djibouti share 1,600 kilometers of border with Ethiopia. They share ethnic ties, trade routes, security concerns. For them, choosing Egypt over Ethiopia isn't strategic positioning, it's geographic suicide. So they take Egyptian money and maintain Ethiopian relationships. And Cairo is learning a hard lesson. You cannot buy geography. Step back from Jigjiga, and Cairo's discomfort crystallizes into strategic crisis. In just 1 week, Egypt watched a sequence of events it could not prevent. First, Ethiopia celebrates the 90th anniversary of its Air Force on January 24th, not as routine ceremony, but as regional signal. North African and Arab delegations attended. Then, 7 days later, the Jigjiga Walk. 3 Horn leaders projecting coordination. Now consider Egypt's broader position in the Horn. 2 years ago, when Ethiopia signed the controversial MOU with Somaliland, Somalia felt threatened. Egypt responded by committing to deploy up to 10,000 peacekeepers, something Cairo had never done in this region. More recently, Egypt signed new port development agreements with Djibouti. These moves are separate initiatives, not direct responses to Ethiopia's Air Force celebration. But together, they reveal Cairo's strategy: expand presence across the Horn, build leverage through ports and troops. Yet despite all this Egyptian investment, both Somalia and Djibouti continue engaging Ethiopia openly. Somalia and Djibouti are immediate neighbors of Ethiopia. Coexistence isn't optional, it's geography. Egypt can offer ports and peacekeepers, but it cannot change the map. Then came a moment of calculated bluntness. Responding to claims that the United States funded the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed didn't hedge or deflect. He stated flatly, "The dam was built by Ethiopians, funded by Ethiopians, and owned by Ethiopians." No diplomatic cushioning, no ambiguity. Then, Abiy dropped a quieter bombshell. He suggested, without elaborating, that other dams are already under construction. No details, no project names, no timelines. But the implication was unmistakable. The Renaissance Dam is not the end of Ethiopia's water infrastructure story. It may just be the beginning. For Cairo, this is existential. Egypt's entire Nile strategy assumes the GERD is Ethiopia's maximum ambition. If Ethiopia builds additional dams, especially on Blue Nile tributaries, Egypt's remaining leverage evaporates. Abiy's language matters because it signals confidence that transcends current disputes. Ethiopia is not negotiating from weakness. It is announcing future moves. And doing so in black and white terms, Cairo cannot misinterpret. No treaties were signed in Jigjiga. No statements directly challenged Egypt. No speeches named Eritrea. But messages were delivered with surgical precision to Somalia and Djibouti. Cooperation with Ethiopia brings development, stability, dignity. To Eritrea, your alliance with Egypt leaves you excluded from the table when neighbors negotiate futures. To Cairo, your encirclement strategy just walked calmly through a public street in Jigjiga and smiled for cameras. Of course, symbolic victories are not strategic guarantees. Somalia and Djibouti may still be hedging, taking Egyptian money while maintaining Ethiopian ties. As Egypt scrambles to deploy peacekeepers and sign emergency port deals, the fundamental question remains unanswered. Can Cairo regain initiative in a region that increasingly sees Ethiopia as indispensable partner rather than dangerous rival? Will Eritrea's bet on Egypt pay off? Or has Asmara already become too isolated to reverse course? And what happens when Abiy's other dams start filling? We'll be tracking every move. This is Horn Africa Insight, where the Horn's quiet moves speak the loudest.